My name is Tyler Nibblet. I'm an assistant professor at Texas Tech University. I manage the swine unit here at the New Deal farm that we have, and I teach swine production to some undergraduates. So today I'm here to give you guys a rundown of the basics of swine nutrition on a broad scale of things. So to get started here, I want to just go right over the PowerPoint slide. So I'm going to go over a little bit of the background of the physiology of the swine digestive tract, go through some classes of nutrients that are important to swine. I want to show you guys the nutritional requirements and some information on diet fortification, and then go over some feedstuffs, objectives, and management considerations for the different phases of swine production, including the nursery, the growth finish side, gestating sows, and lactating sows. So this slide here represents the digestive physiology of a pig, the basic gastrointestinal tract, if you will, beginning at the mouth with some salivary glands going down through the esophagus towards the stomach, followed by the liver and the pancreas, which puts secretions into the small intestine, specifically the duodenum. The small intestine is broken down into three parts: the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. From there, we transport digesta into the cecum, which then is where poor digestion, of cellulose and other fibers occur. And then we end up in the large intestine, where the majority of our water absorption occurs. Most of your nutrient absorption is going to occur in the jejunum, which comes after the duodenum, but secretions from the pancreas and the liver end up in the duodenum to facilitate some chemical digestion. So overall, pigs themselves require about 6 classes of nutrients. Those 6 would include water, carbs, lipids, which are fats, protein, vitamins, and minerals. So in terms of carbohydrates, that is where the majority of your energy in your diet is going to come from. In pig production, the greatest or the most common diet fed to pigs is a corn and soybean meal-based diet. Soybean meal is abbreviated SBM throughout this presentation. And so then you have lipids, which constitutes fatty acids. Those can be added into the diets through either dry fat or soybean oil. Your protein itself, amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. And so pigs themselves require varying levels of amino acids, not necessarily crude protein. And so of the amino acids,
Hey Tyler, sorry to hop on. I think your audio cut out.
What about now?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, I have my AirPod in, but we may be not working on the AirPod right now. So I hope you guys can hear me. We'll get back to it. Okay, so I don't know where I left off, but I'll go over the minerals again, or I can do a brief overview of this. Largely, diets in pigs are or that pigs get fed are corn and soybean meal-based diets, because corn is produced in every single state. For those of you guys that are FFA alumni, you guys should know that with the Corn Gold. Your lipids can be in the form of dry fats or soybean oil and alike in order to provide fatty acids into the diet. In terms of protein, pigs do not necessarily require crude protein in and of itself. So if you see like a 20% or 18% crude protein diet, yes, it's obviously a higher level protein, which is important for early growth in pigs. However, they really require a combination or a menagerie, if you will, of a variety of amino acids. There are 22 total amino acids that build up proteins. There are only 10 essential. Those essential amino acids are those that have to be added into the diet. And you've got your vitamins. Your fat-soluble vitamins are A, E, D, and K. And your water-soluble vitamins are B and C. And we've got various minerals here that are required in the diet. The two biggest ones I'll recap are calcium and phosphorus because they're important for bone growth and structure. And the reason I had water bolded on that previous slide was due to the fact that it is very, very important. In my mind, it is the most important nutrient that pigs require or any species requires. It serves a purpose in thermoregulation, metabolism, as well as acting as a solvent to carry substrates throughout the body, as well as ions. Like we are 70% water, 75% water. A pig's body water content is about 50 to 80%. That can vary based on fat composition of the body and various other factors. The best thing you can do is provide free access to water for your pigs starting prior to weaning. So in our farm here, we've got water nipples in the farrowing crates dedicated to the pigs on a pig level so they can access that water. Now, growing pigs themselves, I'm going to try and connect my AirPods again, consume about 2 to 3 kilograms of water per kilogram of feed. I know that's in kilograms and not necessarily pounds. So you figure a conversion factor of 6 pounds of water for every 2.2 pounds of feed. Some brief overview of dietary fortification. Now, I generated this PowerPoint and presentation kind of broadly because I wanted to provide some information on both sides of the spectrum. In terms of dietary fortification, I urge you guys to work with your feed mills to generate rations for your farm, depending on your scale. Some of you guys, it may be more like purchasing bag feed, either by the bag or by the feed being bagged by the ton. But essentially, like I said earlier, diets are largely corn and soybean meal based. Some areas use like sorghum or barley. It just depends on the native grains that are produced in that area. Because if grains aren't, or if corn wasn't produced in that area, it wouldn't make sense to truck corn in and pay all that freight. Again, you would fortify your diets with calcium and phosphorus because those are important for bone growth and formation. Estimated ratio between total calcium and total phosphorus is between 1.1 to 1 and 1.25 to 1. And essentially, that's 1.1 times the calcium as you have phosphorus. So if you have a pound of phosphorus, you'd have 1.1 pounds of calcium, and so on. And obviously, that latter ratio of 1.25 is a little bit what they would consider wider than the 1.1. And so the issue with wider ratios is that they can impact higher calcium levels can impact the absorption of phosphorus. Now, limestone and dicalcium phosphate are going to be your largest contributors to both calcium and phosphorus on that respective basis into the diets. Now, in terms of minerals, trace minerals and vitamins, and in this case, minerals does include our calcium and phosphorus. There are what we call mineral and vitamin packs out there in the industry. I have two just pictured over here that I grabbed last night when I was creating these slides. I'm fortunate compared to Colt, I didn't have to run through these this morning. But these are formulated to put directly into a corn and soybean meal mixture. In order to completely fortify the diet based on the stage of production. So they are made for sows, sows in gestation and lactation. They're made for pigs anywhere from weaning all the way up to market weight. Some of them are multi-use, so you could use them in your breeding herd diets as well as your grow finish diets. And so the easiest way to go about this, if you're you have a large enough farm where you're mixing your own feed and you have that ability, would be to buy vitamin and mineral packs in order to completely fortify your diets versus buying limestone in a bag and dicalcium phosphate in a bag in order to fortify those diets. It's just simpler to have one product on hand, and they all have a tag with feeding directions in order to tell you how much of that vitamin mineral pack to put into your base mixture of corn and soybean meal. So the National Research Council is the committee that puts together the nutritional requirements for pigs and actually various other species as well. But here we're just speaking about pigs. These estimates provide the amounts of nutrients for various production phases. However, they are the minimal requirements under essentially average conditions, meaning in just like if you were to walk into a grow finish barn that's ideally managed in terms of environment and such like that. It takes into account factors including genetics, varying environments, nutrient availability within the different ingredients that you use, as well as the potential for varying disease levels. In this graph in the top right corner, it basically shows you the amount of productivity that you would receive based on the amount of the nutrient level that you include. And obviously, if you go further to the right of that graph, that is basically increasing the nutrient level in that diet. And so the NRC formulates, you've got 5 main categories. You have the region of deficiency, you have a margin between deficiency and the optimal range, and then you have a margin on the higher end of the optimal range before you reach toxicity. And so the NRC bases their requirements right there on that borderline between the optimal range and the marginal range. Now, there is a safety margin that's typically added by nutritionists that account for nutrient variability in the different ingredients, as well as bioavailability in the case where you might have a presence of various inhibitors or toxins. They would also account for mixing errors and storage or shelf life. You could probably get a few months out of storing any variety of feed, especially when it comes to vitamins and minerals. The vitamins largely start to degrade over time after about 3 to 4 months or so. Now, nutrition in and of itself, or feed, accounts for about 3/4 of the cost of total production for a pig. Those of you guys out there that show pigs or produce a few pigs a year and so on and so forth, you guys probably realize that looking at how much feed you guys put into these pigs compared to the other costs. Now, the show pig industry, I know they have quite a few different supplements that they add on top of just regular bag feed, depending on their goals and targets that they're trying to meet. However, I do want to iterate that energy itself is not a nutrient, but it's the property of nutrients. And so essentially, it is the oxidation of your fats and your carbs, your carbohydrates and your lipids that you include in the diets. However, when protein or the various amino acids are produced in or supplemented in excess, they will become metabolized and also provide energy into the diet. Keep in mind, though, that pigs will eat to meet their energy needs. So in a pound of feed, if you have, just spitballing numbers, 2,300 megacows per pound, which sounds fairly high now that I say that, more like 1,400. I think I'm getting my kilograms and imperial measurements backwards. Basically, they're going to eat what they need to maintain their energy levels. Now, if you were to include soybean oil at a fair rate of 2 or 3%, you're going to increase the energy density of that diet, and therefore those pigs wouldn't eat as much of that feed on a volume basis as they would without the oil. And like I said earlier, pigs themselves don't require specific crude protein levels. They more so require a mixture of amino acids. And when we're talking about supplementing diets or making sure that there's enough of these amino acids in the diets, we're looking at those 10 essentials. However, I've got the main 4 that we're concerned about here listed down below. You have lysine. Lysine is the biggest amino acid of concern, largely because it is limiting in corn and soybean meal-based diets. So many times they supplement with synthetic lysine. Then you have methionine, threonine, and tryptophan as well. Those are also limiting in cereal-based diets. Now, when we're talking about formulating diets and get more into the specifics, amino acids are supplemented into the diet on a ratio basis. And so here to the right, you have SID lysine. SID stands for standardized ileal digestibility. And essentially, it's a way to measure the amount of lysine that is digested by the pig and utilized versus what comes out as the end product in feces. It also accounts for endogenous amino acid losses. It's basically a bunch of science stuff, but essentially they're just numbers when it comes down to it. So lysine is held at your 100%. and then you compare these other three and the other various amino acids to lysine. So essentially, if you were to have 1 pound of lysine in a diet, you would have 0.65 pounds of threonine, and so on and so forth, 0.3 pounds of methionine, just as another example. So when we get in talking about the nursery pigs, that's your pigs that are first weaned, whether that's at 3 weeks or 4 weeks. They need highly digestible carbohydrates and proteins in order to get on the right foot. That's why we include a lot of whey and fish meal and protein concentrates to increase that palatability. And then you formulate with various vitamins and minerals as well. I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit so I can get to the economics part. However, the basis behind using whey, which contains lactose and such, is that pigs are a mammal species. They drink milk, and so they have the enzyme lactase, which breaks down the lactose in the milk, and it starts declining after weaning. However, for that first week or so, we utilize that lactase enzyme to help break down the lactose in the whey. And then about after the first week or so, it's pretty much non-existent. And so that's where if you continue to feed a diet that's high in lactose, those pigs will start getting scours. And so we move from diets high in lactose and other highly digestible protein sources to more starch-based and less digestible protein sources. When we talk about feeding pigs themselves after weaning, we get into the phase feeding regimens. And essentially that is feeding a specific amount of diet per certain pig, or for a certain number of days or weeks. The idea behind a phase feeding system is that you can best match that feed for a certain stage of pig. So in this graph, I'll explain it really quickly. You have your amount of lysine on the y-axis and your body weight on the y-axis, or the x-axis, excuse me. And that green line is the lysine requirement curve over time. Where you see this red line here, to the left of the green curve, and same thing with the blue line, that is technically underfeeding your lysine requirements until you hit that green line. And then to the right of the green line for either of those is where you're overfeeding your requirements. And so you can see how infrequently you're overfeeding and underfeeding with a 6-phase program compared to a 2-phase program. And to the right, I just have a quick table set up to depict the amount of feed you would feed based on the nursery phase, as well as the pig weight there on the top row. So this information here came from us here at Texas Tech. We utilize a 4-week lactation period, and lactation period, and they're maintained in our nursery after weaning for about 5 weeks. These are some estimates for feeding costs based on our values. So our phase 1 diet costs us about $62 to make, and P2 $43, and P3 $17, and so on. Same thing for the grow finish phase. They're moved in at about 60 pounds, and they sit there for about 4 months until we ship them out. But overall, it costs about $23 a pig in the nursery to feed, and about $100 to feed in finishing, for a total cost of about $122 per pig by the time we're done feeding them through market weight of about 280 pounds, and about $12,200 for 100 pigs. The main idea and objectives here for the grow finish pigs is we want to maximize their lean gain and feed conversion efficiency, so the amount of feed that they consume compared to the amount of muscle or weight gain that we achieve. The idea behind that is at the lowest cost possible. And so that's where we start getting into those really, really simplistic diets. However, we still utilize that phase feeding system. And so during this time, the amount of feed that we feed pigs over time from weaning to market weight, the grow finish phase accounts for about 75% of that amount of that feed that we use to produce a pig. And so largely these diets here, we only require corn, soybean meal, and our vitamins and minerals. We, at this point, pull out a lot of those specialty ingredients like your fish meal, your animal plasma, and your high protein concentrate, your soy protein concentrates. This is just an example here that I have for some finishing diets. You have your different phases on the top row, and then you have on the left column, you've got your body weight in pounds, so your body weight range, your estimated feed intake, net energy in terms of megacalories per pound, your SID lysine, and then calcium as well as phosphorus. And you can see how over time these requirements go down in the diet, but that's largely because they're increasing in their amount of feed that they consume. I know this seems very, very overwhelming, but I just want to do a brief layout of this table, and you guys can come back to this. Essentially, these are snippets I got from the National Research Council for the nutritional requirements for growing pigs, and it starts out between 5 and 7 kilograms and goes all the way up to 135 kilograms. The top section here depicts all the energy requirements for pigs over time as they reach these various phases across the 7 different phases that they have listed here. Underneath that, we have our calcium and phosphorus requirements, again, based on the body weight range that you're trying to feed. And then you have the amino acid requirements here that I have listed in a total basis, which is different from that SID basis. However, this is just a little bit different way of depicting those amino acid requirements. Same thing here again. Energy is still up there listed in the top section, but below we have our different mineral elements and their requirements in the diet, as well as the various vitamins. Now, biotin, choline, folacin, all of those are your various B vitamins. I'd like to move forward here into gilt feeding and management. I know Dr. Wiegert will be giving a talk shortly on the reproduction side of things, but I just wanted to talk about this because I feel like it's very important, especially whether you are breeding and retaining your own gilts at home on your small farm, or if you are in the show business and you're showing gilts and you want to bring them home to breed them and turn them into sows. Typically, gilts are fed on a full feed basis or ad libitum basis until about 300 pounds. And from there, we try to limit feed them so we don't have them become overweight. About 5 pounds, or most of the time, that's what your scoop weighs per day is what we feed them or aim to feed them. We aim to breed them between 300 and 350 pounds and wait until about that second heat to breed them. Limit feeding them after 300 pounds helps us minimize our structural issues as well as various repro issues that could arise. Now we're going to move further into sows. The idea here is to minimize our embryo and fetal losses, as well as to obtain that large litter size and prep the sow for farrowing. Idea here is to try and keep them in as positive of an energy balance as possible. Now, your feed intake requirements here are based on body conditions. So the sow will still aim to maintain that fetal growth. The goal behind that is to make sure that we feed them for adequate litter size or adequate body condition, excuse me. So this graph here this table here on the right is the table for sow body condition score. Your ideal body condition is about a score of 3. If you have a score of 2, you want to increase that feed level. If you have a score of 4, you still need to make sure that we're maintaining that sow. Provide enough feed for her to maintain her body, but not necessarily trying to feed her overweight. Sorry, my dog's barking here in the background. The important thing for younger sows is they're still growing. We breed them at a fairly young age, and so we try to maximize their productivity in the farrowing house. However, they're still not at their mature size, so their energy requirements are higher than that of an older sow. However, some consequences for weight or excessive weight gain is that sows and gilts will eat less feed in the farrowing house, which is where it really, really counts, because you don't want them coming out too terribly thin, because then they may have issues breeding back and that sort of thing. So here is the table for gestating sow requirements. The NRC breaks this down based on parity, gestation weight gain, and days of gestation. And then you have your energy, same layout as the grow finish tables. And then you look at body weight gain per day. Oops, excuse me. And then we've got our various amino acid requirements here as well on a total basis. So the objectives in the farrowing house are to maximize our feed intake as well as our litter performance. This time is one of the only times your sow will be fed ad libitum in the farrowing house. And these requirements are about 3 times that of a gestating sow. So here's the other economics part of it. Essentially, with this, I'll tell you, is based off how we feed our sows at Texas Tech, and it costs us about $400 a year to keep a sow on the farm. And these are our feed prices that we utilize. They are up to date as of November, and so that's what we utilize here, based on the various body condition and feeding levels that we implement. So in summary, our swine diets basically include corn and soybean meal, fortified with our vitamins and minerals. The best way to accomplish that is through supplemental vitamin mineral packs with your feed mill, and it's formulated based on the phase of production. Complex diets are utilized in the nursery. Finishing pigs consume the simplest diets, lower cost and fewer ingredient inclusion. And sows should be fed to maintain that body condition score of a 3, while also maximizing that feed intake during lactation, and try not to overfeed those sows prior to farrowing. And with that, I will bring it back over here to the stage and have Marissa join me back online. And if you guys have any questions, please let me know. My email address is there in the in that last slide.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tyler.
Because we started a few minutes late, but
yeah, that was really good. If you guys have any questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat. I thought of a question for you, Tyler.
Yeah.
If they want to know, like, what some good things to feed, then who would you recommend, like, in local areas, like, local feed stores or people at TSC?
So local
or, like,
feed
would you
stores.
recommend?
I would recommend your local feed. I guess my AirPod died again. Local feed mills. So I know back on the East Coast, I forgot to mention that at the start. I'm originally from Delaware and spent some time in Virginia. So in those areas, the Mill of Bel Air is a great place. They're up in Maryland. The Delmarva Feeds in in Morgan's Choice, or I forget exactly where it is. Eastern Shore of Maryland. And throughout the Mid-Atlantic region, southern states is a good one. Here in Texas area, we use HF&C feeds. But that's more dedicated to West Texas. So your local feed mills that make the feed would be great people to reach out to. If you're looking to buy bag feed, southern states and local cooperatives like that, as well as Tractor Supply would be places to go to.
Cool. Thank you so much, Tyler.
I'm trying to gear it towards everybody that was looking to make their own feed, as well as purchase pre-made bag feed. So like I said, if you guys have any questions at any time, feel free to reach out.